Have you ever wondered if God was still in control? Does He know what's going on? Does He know what's happening in my life? Can He see the things that are happening all throughout our world? Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Burns and thank you for joining me on Walking with the Word. We're simply here to open up the Bible and to find some things that we can learn and know. We're looking today at the question, is God still in control of world events? You know, if you look around our world, you may think our world has gone mad, and maybe it has. I don't know. I'm not the judge of that. Maybe things are different. I don't know. I'm not looking at that. Maybe you look at our world and you think everything is great. I can't be the judge of that. I don't know what's happening in your life. But the general question applies, not to current events, not to past events, but to simply this general question, is God still in control? Does God know what's going on? And what do we see when we think about that question? Well, here's what I want to do as we go through our lesson together. I want to look at the passages and the principles. Now, the passages are going to be three. They're going to be simple. They're going to be easy. Three passages, two in the Old Testament, one in the New Testament, to help us see who God is and what He does in our world. Then I want to look at the principles, and I want us to notice something that is not destroyed to help us answer the question. Let's begin by looking at the passages. I want to start with Daniel 2:44 because in this segment we see something that's a priority. You pick up in the scenes and you read in Daniel 2:44, and in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. It is God who is being described as the ruler, as the creator, as the designer, as the one who is in control. Now in Daniel chapter 2, you have a king who has had a dream. And he's seeking after an interpreter for his dream. And he cannot find anyone to interpret his dream. All of his wise men, all of his magicians, all of the people that regularly tricked him, they couldn't figure out what his dream meant. They could not figure out anything. Why? Because they weren't real. They weren't true. They weren't honest. But in the times of the book of Daniel, you have God who works through men and with men in a variety of different ways. Here with this dream unto the king, and here with the dream teller, Daniel. Now he is sought out to seek after this dream, and he talks about the kingdoms of men in the dream. And the reality is, God is in control of the rise and fall of nations. He always has been. But what comes out of that discussion is what takes place in Daniel 2:44. In the days of these kings, God is going to set up His kingdom. Now, Jesus was never designed to set up an earthly kingdom, as in a nation. So many people use passages like Daniel 2:44 and others to teach that Jesus came to establish His earthly kingdom. No, Jesus came to die on the cross. Jesus came to set up His kingdom, the church. He did not come to set up a kingdom that rises and falls like the kingdoms of men. The church was not plan B. The whole time, Jesus was designed to establish His kingdom, the church. But in this prophetic statement about the church, we have the rise and fall of the kingdoms of men. The book of Isaiah, in Isaiah 46:9-10, says this, "Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none other. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from the ancient times things that are not yet done, saying, My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure." God is the one who is in control. We need to know that. He has been in control, and He still is in control. You may be saying, well, why go any further in the lesson? There's something we need to see, and we'll see it in just a minute. But I don't want you to miss a New Testament passage that is fundamental with how God works throughout the world. It's Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to His purpose. I want to ask you this question when we think about the passages that have to do with how God works today. Are you in a part of His purpose? And what I mean by that is, are you a Christian? When we look at the passages, we see that God has always been in control. Let's look now at the principles. And I want to give you 3 passages. They're going to be from the book of Genesis. And what we're going to learn together is God does not destroy the free will of man. Just because He's in control does not mean you have the ability to choose. I want you to look at 3 passages, Genesis 3:6, Genesis 39:12, and Genesis 50, verse 20. Let's start out by looking at Genesis 3:6 with Adam and Eve. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Go study Genesis 3, and you will notice that God tells Adam and Eve everything they need to know. And there is something they need to abstain from. There's something they need to leave alone. But just like we are, the one thing they didn't need to do, they sought after it. It was the thing that was good for food. It was pleasant to the eyes. It will give me something that no one else has. And they sought after it. I want to ask you one question 3 times. Here it is in Genesis 3:6. Did God's control take away the free will of Adam and Eve? The answer is simply no. Number 2, I want you to think about Genesis 39:12, Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Then she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. Here was a man who sought to serve God. And he understood that the things done in the body, they would defile the body, but they would defile man before God. And here was a married woman asking him, "Lie with me." Now that's meant in the way exactly as you're thinking it. And he leaves and he flees. He makes a choice. You see, what I want to ask you is, with Joseph and Potiphar, does God's control of the things of this world stop their free will choice? The answer is no. The answer is no. In Genesis 50, verse 20, Joseph and his brothers, "But as for me, you meant it evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about that as this day, to save many people alive." Those brothers who took Joseph and sold him into slavery, did God's free will stop them? Joseph, who went into slavery and endured all sorts of hardships, did God's free will stop him? They had a choice. That's the principle we're learning. The people of earth, we're just looking at the book of Genesis, but all the way through Genesis to Revelation, beginning to end of the Bible, people have choice. Certainly God's in control and His will be established and it will be accomplished. But you also have a choice, because God's control does not destroy man's free will. So is He in control today? The answer is yes. The real question becomes, are we in control in following Him? Are we going to follow Him? And will we follow Him? I hope that you can look at our world, and no matter what your worldview is, you can know eternity is sweet. Heaven is greater, and God loves you. May we always recognize God loves us. Thank you so much for joining me today on Walking with the Word. I hope you come back next time as we seek to live better.